But first, joining us now with more surrounding the legal battle out of Pennsylvania, Senator Ted Cruz. Senator, let me applaud you because you have offered to step up. I have said from the beginning, if you're looking at the constitutionality of what the state legislature in Pennsylvania did, it directly contradicts the language in Pennsylvania state constitution. Now, that to me is a slam dunk case the Supreme Court should take. You're now willing to argue that, which, by the way, let the record note, you have won cases in the Supreme Court.
Well, that's right, Sean, and it's good to be with you this evening. We're seeing across the country lawsuits that are challenging voter fraud, that are challenging irregularities in the election. And in Pennsylvania, this appeal to the Supreme Court raises very serious issues. It raises pure issues of law. And I believe the Supreme Court should choose to take the case. I think they should hear the appeal. And as you noted, the legal team reached out and asked if I would be willing to present the oral argument if the court took the case. And I told them I'd be happy to, because particularly at a time when this country is so divided, when people are so angry, I think we need a sense of resolution, and we need the Supreme Court to step in and ensure that we're following the Constitution and following the law. Right now, it's not healthy for our democracy what we're seeing, and in Pennsylvania, the problem was made worse because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is a partisan Democratic court that has issued multiple decisions that were just on their face contrary to law. And that's not how elections are supposed to work.
All right, let me go. So I look at that case as probably the strongest on the constitutional merits. Now I want to go to the case in Wisconsin. The law is clear, and it has court precedence with the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And that is, they don't allow early voting. And when they do, there's a very strict application process. They've identified, and Reince has been on this program, Reince Priebus, saying, well, they gave out hundreds of thousands of these early votes. That contradicts not only the law, but legal precedents. Then we got the case in Georgia with the dual verification standards. And then we got the Nevada case, which is fascinating, where they've identified people that are out of state, tens of thousands, people that are at public addresses or non-existent addresses, and a lot of dead people that actually voted in Nevada. Now, I want to ask you hypothetically, if those cases, has been talked to me that there might be other states or a single state that would unite those four and make it one big Supreme Court case. I want to pick your constitutional mind on that possibility.
Well, if an individual state did sue another state before the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction over that. That's a matter that they could consider. The challenge right now is the timing, is that we're getting awfully close. Tomorrow is what's called the safe harbor deadline for the presidential electors. The electors will cast their ballots on December 14th, and then obviously we've got the presidential inauguration coming up on January 20th. So the time is running out of the hourglass. I think the Supreme Court feels the urgency of that. That's the reason why Justice Alito set the deadline for Pennsylvania's response to this lawsuit to be tomorrow, so that we'll have a response. We could have a decision as early as tomorrow from the Supreme Court whether or not they'll take the case. Now, getting the Supreme Court to take a case is not easy. Typically, you get about 8,000 appeals to the Supreme Court in a given year. They take about 80 of them. They take about 1%. And
but
so
this is a big case.
Threshold.
This has to be considered, right?
I think the court should consider it. I have called on the court to do it. I think it's the right thing to do. There will be justices who would prefer to stay out of this, who would prefer to protect their own credibility, essentially to protect their backsides. I think that's the wrong thing to do here. I think when you look at a country where 39% of Americans right now believe this last election was rigged, that's a real problem for confidence in the integrity of our electoral system. And so I'm hopeful the Supreme Court will step forward to its responsibility and resolve this case and resolve other cases as needed according to law and according to the Constitution, to say this is a country where we respect the rule of law, where we follow the Constitution, not the momentary partisan swells of interest or passion you may see on either side.
Let me go back to my argument, though. If if you look at the Pennsylvania case, and we've given the detail, violates the Constitution. I go back to Wisconsin. They don't allow early voting, and when they do, they have stringent standards. A couple of 100,000 applications given out anyway. Seems in violation of the law and case precedent. 2 signature verification systems in Georgia. I think they've got legal problems there as well. And then you add the case in Nevada in particular. Those 4 cases I'm looking at closely legally. Yep. I see merit in all 4. Now combining them, because you've got the safe harbor deadline tomorrow, is that a possibility?
Well, for some of the cases, they're questions of facts, and it's really incumbent on the legal teams that are trying those cases to put forward sufficient evidence to convince a trier of fact that there was voter fraud, that there were irregularities of sufficient magnitude to change the outcome. That's not an easy legal threshold, but that's the task of many of these cases. The case in Pennsylvania is a different case than that. It's not actually turning on disputed questions of fact. It's a pure issue of law. As you noted, the Pennsylvania Constitution has very explicit limits on voting, and in most circumstances requires in-person voting. And the Pennsylvania legislature this spring passed a law that violates the express terms of the Constitution, that set up the stage for universal mail-in voting, which, as you know, there's been a long pattern. Mail-in voting is much more susceptible to fraud, much more susceptible to irresponsible partisan operatives trying to steal votes. And in Pennsylvania, the question that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to have to consider is whether a state can change the rules in the middle of the process and do so in a way that has a potential partisan advantage contrary to law. I think the answer to that should be no.
And contrary to the Constitution, it's actually really, what's interesting is everything you just said about mail-in voting and criticism and the increased odds of fraud. Yeah, that was said by the Baker-Carter Commission. And interestingly, Ted Cruz, the New York Times agrees with you. So thank you. That doesn't happen every day.
There are not many times you can say that.
Not many times you can say that, which probably is good for you. Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.